I remember actually looking down at my chest thinking, he stabbed me. He's actually stabbed me. And then he was just incessant. So it was just a blow after blow after blow. And then obviously I was searching around, screaming for help. And that's when I'd spotted Johnny, who was walking up the hill. And I literally was screaming to him, pleading for him to just come and help me.
I was on my way home from work, as I actually finished work early that day, and I had my earphones in, just listening to music, and I was conscious, obviously, Natalie was walking down the hill, but it wasn't until I saw the attacker pretty much jump on her, and at first I thought it was a prank, but it wasn't until I saw the look on Natalie's face and saw the knife produced that I actually realised, oh my God, this is something actually real. And I didn't really get a chance to even think about it. I had to react. I had to do something, and I still remember the thought process going through my head of just, well, I've got to help, but I don't know what do I do? Do I go for her? Do I go for the knife? Do I go for the attacker? So the only thought that I kind of concluded to was to actually go for the guy. So I went around the back and tried to pull him off.
I was also on my way home from work, and I was stood down the road by the bus stops, waiting to jump on and go home. And I heard Anthony shouting from the top of the Trinity Hill where the incident was happening. And I didn't know what to think, what was happening. All I could hear was him shouting help. And I just ran up the hill. And just obviously the first thing I saw was Natalie just on the floor and the attacker over the top of her, and I didn't really have time to react to do anything. I just grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and his belt and just dragged him off the top of her as hard as I could and threw him a few feet away from her and stood in between the two so he wouldn't attempt to get back up and continue attacking her. It's just one of those instinctive things that you just do it. Yeah, just do or die.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you don't really have any time to process it. It is just the case of it's not the case of can or can't, you just do. So it's hard to explain. It really is.
I was put into a coma to start with, and I remember coming out of that, and obviously the initial stages were trying to process the fact that they were telling me about the attack in a bit more detail, though I had remained conscious through most of it, so I had remembered a lot of it. I had remembered both of them in different ways. I'd remembered that Johnny had come to my help because obviously I'd been screaming to him, and I'd remembered that Callum actually ripped him off me at the end. But it's only after probably a week, 2 weeks, where you start to reflect and think, hold on a minute, this is... People don't have to react, people don't have to jump in, and some people wouldn't, because at the end of the day, this is a man who's carrying a 12-inch carving knife, is stabbing somebody. You're putting yourself in severe danger by going into that situation, and therefore your own self-protection has to be overridden in order to protect somebody else. And both of them, as well as Tony Smith, who was also involved, and there's also a guy called Carmelo who was also kicking at the attacker to try and get him off. So all of them jumped in and intervened.
Yeah, it's obviously with parents and stuff like that, it's like very proud and uplifting and very, very good things and stuff like that, but yeah, just good things really, just good compliments and things like that. So I don't want to really dwell on the situation, have people saying they're very proud of me all the time and stuff like that. It's happened and it's dealt with. So
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if anything, with my family, it's kind of made us closer, really, because it does make you realise what possibly can happen on everyday life. I mean, obviously these sorts of things don't happen every day, but it does kind of make you realise that life can be short. So it could be one day you could be together, but the next day you maybe not. So it made us closer, I feel.
We weren't allowed, obviously, to have contact in the initial stages with it being a criminal trial. So I'd asked to meet all of them and was told categorically that couldn't happen until the trial was over. So I actually wrote letters to all of them. So the first time I met them, I met Callum at court, wasn't it? On sentencing day was the first day we were introduced. So poor Callum stood in the doorway of the court, and myself and my mum and dad and sisters were both all crying on him and thanking him profusely. So he stood there with all these people crying on him, thanking him. Because it's an overwhelming moment to meet somebody who's been that difference between life and death. And Johnny and I, we met quite a few months later. It was not till the autumn that we actually met, and we met in a local cafe bar, and we were reminiscing about the fact that people must have wondered what was going on, because these two people were stood in the middle of this cafe bar crying on each other, sobbing, with baby in pram, and the two of us hugging each other and crying. And it's just overwhelming, and I say to all of them, I said it to Tony when I met him as well, because he's an amazing man, and you know, he was the other person involved. When I've met him, I can never ever say thank you enough, because they literally did make that difference between me being sat here now and my children having mum and me not being here. I think it's just that, yeah, knowing that you've got that, you know, you've got that, you're in an area where people don't turn the other way, and but you like to think it's wherever you live that would happen, if we're honest, but you know, here it has happened. And to know that people would step in, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely petrified when I'm out on my own still, but you know, to know that there is that good, and to see so much good and reflect on so much good, that you know, so many different people did their part that day. And to be honest, the whole community since has supported me, so quite a few people in the Sutton area know who I am, and they've offered support in totally different ways, and that's been incredible. It's kind of gone on past the actual attack, past that day of March the 4th, where people have reached out to me and shown me different ways of support, and it's been really, really incredible and very, very humbling.